All right, so welcome to Rhino and V-Ray, Digital Tools for Architects for the spring of 2017. It's nice to have a lot of you back. It's fun because you all know the program, so it's easy. I only have to worry about half of you in the beginning, right? So those of you that have heard me talk and been in my classes before, it's the same deal as last time. Your accounts work, all that sort of thing, okay? The setup is roughly the same. We'll focus on Rhino instead of the rest of the stuff. For those of you that have never been in class before, we're going to go through a bunch of stuff. I did request that the Copy Center make syllabi, and I was totally on top of it, and I sent that request in before I left for break. When I got here this morning, they, of course, did not make the copies. So, no syllabi for you, all right? At least for now. So, if you really want a syllabi, I'll do it. It is on the website. Of course, the website is down today. Such is life. So I will make copies for next class. So I apologize, but you guys can survive one class day without a syllabus. I think we'll make it work. Okay, it might be tough, but I think you can do it. So obviously we went through a role, so you're in the right place. That's a good thing. This is the extension of 135. If you haven't taken 135, no problem. You can take them out of order. It doesn't make any difference. But this was designed as the Architect's version of 135. So in 135, we deal with the Adobe Suite and whatever. In this class, we're really going to start dealing with architecture itself as a whole, how to model it, how to make it look awesome, etc. Okay, so that's the fun of it. I'm going to intermix my slides with just pictures because it's more fun that way. But it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But this is a boring slide, so I like to see stuff with images. It's just more fun. Okay, so my name is Grant Adams. I have a Master of Architecture degree from UC Berkeley. About 10 years ago, 9.5 years ago, I graduated and I got an email that said they were looking for somebody to teach a computer class here at DVC. And I said, well, I don't really know what I want to do. Welcome to the world of architecture. You graduate, you don't know what you want to do. And I said, okay, I like teaching. We'll give it a shot. And so I was originally hired to teach 135, which a lot of you already took. And in the process of teaching 135, I kept going to Daniel and saying, we really need to have 136 because they need to know Rhino. And Daniel was always like, yeah, whatever, this Rhino thing, right? And then Berkeley decided that it would be a good idea if you learned Rhino. And then basically the whole world decided that it would be a good idea if you learned Rhino. So guess what? Now we have 136 and you get to learn Rhino. So that's good. When I was in grad school, Rhino had just come out. It was a new software package, and I really liked it from the moment that it was there. And the way that I would describe Rhino is that it is what AutoCAD should be in 3D. It's a great program. I think you'll get a lot out of it. And it will be a nice transition for those of you that are heavy in SketchUp to really see what you can do in Rhino because it's different, but at the same time very, very good. So my email address is gadams@dvc.edu. You're more than welcome to email me whenever. I am, however, just an associate professor here, which means I'm only here 2 days a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. So I may or may not get back to you on another day of the week. Obviously, I have another job. I have other priorities on those days. But I try to be here as much as I possibly can on Mondays and on Wednesdays. Phone number here, if you need to text me, that's fine. Obviously, if you text me at 3 in the morning, I probably won't respond. Right? If you call me, then I'll get really mad at you. No. But, obviously, it's there for your use, but don't expect necessarily for me to answer or to respond. So my office hours are Monday, 7 to 8 in the morning. That's to accommodate the first class, the 135 class. And then on Wednesdays, I do 2 to 3. The truth is that I'm here a lot. I get here, let's see, this morning I opened this room at 5:20. So I'm generally here very early in the morning, so if you ever need to talk to me, I'm here. When you start getting into your final renderings and stuff, if you want to come in early, you can harness almost the whole lab via network render, so it's a good time, but you have to get up early, so that's not so good, okay? But I'm generally here, especially in the morning. On Mondays, I won't be here in the afternoon, so after this class, I'll be leaving on Mondays, but on Wednesdays, I'll be here probably until 5. So I'm generally around, even though my office hours are technically these windows, right? I only get paid for those little windows. But, if I'm here, by all means, talk to me. And I've had the worst luck with everything today. So it just is what it is, okay? So, whatever. Okay? Deep breath. Okay. So, a lot of you are already familiar with the course website, which is digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. It'd be nice if it worked. It should work, but it's not. I don't know why. But you'll go here to view the exercises, to view the assignments. I'm going to try to cut down on paper. It seems like you guys seem okay with me cutting paper, but if you guys really want handouts, I will definitely do handouts. Obviously, I did a handout for today. It's the first day. You'll see all the important course information. It's also where you're going to post all of your work for the class. The first time, for those of you that have never done this before, it seems a little daunting. Those of you that have been in class before, it's pretty easy by the end, right? Okay, it probably takes you 2 weeks, and then you get totally used to it, and it won't be a problem. So don't worry about it. But that's where you'll turn everything in. You make your posts there. I have a course calendar there. I have all the exercises. I have all the assignments. If you need an extra copy, it's there. Everything's there. Okay. There are also a bunch of tutorials and lecture recordings. So I try hard to record my lectures when I talk, especially in this class because we're doing a lot of demonstration work. You know, in 135, I stand up here and I talk for a while, and you guys can zone out and check Facebook. And I see this, right? I know what happened. Especially you guys on that row where I can't see you. You know, I have to keep sneaking over here and what are you doing? Oh, I'm lecturing. No, but in this class, there's going to be less of me wandering around talking to you, and a lot more of me on the computer teaching you how to do stuff in Rhino, right? And sometimes that can be a little daunting because maybe I'm going for 40 minutes or an hour of me going through these different steps and whatever. So I record everything, and you can look at it after the fact. That'll be on the course website. Right? The good news about this class is I've taught it enough times to where I have a backlog of lectures. So if one of the recordings doesn't work or something goes wrong, chances are I have it from last year or 2 semesters ago where I did do it. Okay? So that's all on the website. You will need to do comments, just like you did in 135. So honest, right? It is something that's part of your training here, but you won't have to do as many. Because there's a lot of things, especially in the beginning of this class, where, like today, everybody makes a box with a slanted side. Well, guess what? Everybody has a box with a slanted side. Not too exciting, so you get the idea. Okay, so let's continue on. So we start at 11, right? You guys that have been in 135 before know that I like to start a little bit late. That's normal for me, okay? But don't let me keep sliding that late time, right? I like to start late, but I don't like to start after 11:10. Okay, so 11:08, 11:10, something like that. But it gives you enough time to get in here, get your computers on, log in, all that sort of stuff, so that you're actually ready to go when I start. So this class, unfortunately, spans lunch, right? So we start at 11 and we end at 2. That's kind of a long time not to have a lunch break. Right? So I try to schedule a natural break between when I do my demonstration and when we start lab. Okay, that's your time to go outside, have a bite to eat, etc. It's flexible because sometimes it takes me 20 minutes to talk. Sometimes it might take me an hour and a half to talk. And so that time is going to slide a little bit. Okay? This is very much a college class, though. If you're really hungry and you need to eat, if it's hopefully not during lecture time, but if it's during lab time, go ahead and go eat, right? I get that. So I'm not going to penalize you for that. We talked about office hours before. You guys can read this later. It just says that we're going to work on Rhino and V-Ray. Okay? So 2 pieces of software that we are going to work with in this class. The first one is Rhinoceros. It's made by a company called McNeil. It's kind of the last big independent company out there, which is kind of cool. Right? It hasn't been bought by Autodesk, which owns pretty much everything else. Right? It's not owned by Vectorworks. But it is out there as its own kind of entity, which I think is great. One of the great things about Rhino is it also talks to everything. You have an AutoCAD file, you can bring an AutoCAD file in. Basically, you have a SketchUp file, you can bring a SketchUp file in. So we have a lot of flexibility with Rhino, which is one of the big advantages. And then we have something called V-Ray. And you've heard me talk about V-Ray before, and you've seen people who've done renderings in V-Ray and whatever. What V-Ray really is it's a plugin that runs on top of Rhino. So you do your modeling work in Rhino, and then you use V-Ray to do the rendering, to do the pretty picture. Okay? The cool thing about V-Ray is they make V-Ray for Rhino, they make V-Ray for SketchUp, they make V-Ray for 3D Studio, they make V-Ray for pretty much anything you can think of. Okay? If you learn V-Ray for Rhino, you know the basics for V-Ray for SketchUp, the basics for V-Ray for 3D Studio, or anything else. So even though it is a plugin, it's kind of a universal plugin that works as its own entity depending on where you go forward. So if you go through this class and you learn Rhino and you say, yeah, I really didn't like Rhino, I want to go back to SketchUp, I will shoot you. No, I'm just kidding. You can go back to SketchUp and limp your way along, right? But you can use V-Ray. So even if you go through this class and you don't like Rhino at the end, break my heart, you still got something. You can still use V-Ray out of it, which is good. Okay, so V-Ray is awesome. It is insanely complicated, so we'll break it into lots of little things along the way. Right? If you sat down and said, I'm going to make a rendering in V-Ray right now, which you guys are going to try to do momentarily, you're going to find that it really looks pretty crappy. Right? And that's okay because you don't have the settings and you don't have everything yet. So we'll get there. We'll make it look good. That I can promise you. The other fun thing is that's where we get all the lights and the lighting effects and all the stuff. Everybody wants to do the night rendering. Well, guess what? We're going to get there. We're going to do night renderings. Okay? So bear with us while we work through it. So there is a required textbook for the class. Right? It's the Digital Tools for Architects Handbook. If you bought it before, it's the same book. So you don't have to buy it again. Life is good. Okay? If you haven't, it's available through an online publisher. It's not available in the bookstore. Lulu.com/spotlight/DTFA will get you there. By all means, do a Google search for coupon codes. Save yourself some money. Okay? Doesn't impact me at all. You might as well save money. Okay? Get free shipping, etc. There was last week I think they had a 20% off thing or whatever. So anyway. So grading. This should look very familiar to 135. Same setup. Okay, we have lab exercises worth 20% of your overall grade, and we'll talk about what all of these are in just a little bit. We have assignments. Those are worth 40% of your overall grade. The final project is worth 30%, just like the final portfolio is worth 30%. And then we have a 10% participation grade for the class. Okay, I try really hard, just like with 135, to make this a very consistent, even workflow class. So if you're taking it with 220 or you're taking it with 221, that's perfectly okay. Okay. You can take it at the same time. You should be able to do the bulk of the work in the class. The time that it starts to take outside of class is when we get to the end and we're doing the big renderings and you have to let your computer render or something along those lines, in which case you're going to be doing renderings for other classes and other work and you're going to be busy in here anyway. So it's not that big a deal. Okay? So it should be consistent, should be fairly easy to keep on top of. If you're here and you do your work, you should be able to stay on top of it. So, lab exercises are worth 20% of your overall grade for the class. They are the things that you get every day. So, I handed you a piece of paper today. It says Exercise 201. That's your first lab exercise. It's designed to be done in class during the class period. In this class, sometimes it takes you a little bit longer. Sometimes you have to work in Rhino for an extra hour or so to finish up whatever the lab is. That's okay. Right? Try, if you can, though, to post it by 150. Okay? You guys that were in 135 before, you know that if you get behind in them, it's hard to catch up. It's a lot of work. So stay on top of it. Make your posts every day. Remember, they are graded on a pass, not pass basis. If you do it, no matter how it looks, you get credit. If you don't do it, you get a 0. Real easy. Right? This is grade padding. Right? Makes your grade higher. So just do them. Okay? Exercise to do at the end of the lab period. Though you guys know I'm a bit flexible with that. Okay, but try to get it done. They're designed for you to finish in the lab period. Right? If you get to the end and you didn't quite finish everything that I wanted you to do, turn in something. Okay, you'll still get credit for it. Assignments are larger and they generally require work outside of class. I'll probably throw you a few days along the way for your assignments, especially when we get to the end and we start doing renderings, because you're going to have questions. We're doing light fixtures and you're like, I can't get this one light to work, and you want to sit with me. Okay, I understand that. We'll try to build that in, but the bulk of it should be outside of class. Okay, and that's the nature of an assignment. They're worth more. There are fewer assignments in this class than there were in 135. So in 135, I think there were like 7 assignments, which translated out to maybe 6.5% each. In this class, there'll only be probably 4. You do the math, they're about 10% each. So they're worth a little bit more. The other thing is there's a longer period of time in between these assignments. Okay, so you might get the first assignment, 201, and it might be a month that you're working on this assignment. Part of that is you have to build up the skills to be able to do it. Okay, because in the beginning we have to learn a bunch before you can really. If I sat you down and said, guess what, we're going to start your first assignment today, you'd go, what? Because you don't have the skill yet. Okay, so don't worry about it. We will get through, but that's part of why there's fewer assignments in this class. Okay, just like last time, you can elect to improve your assignments. If you didn't like your grade, you can do it again. That is due on the last day of the semester. You can turn it in earlier, but I won't actually do any regrading until the last day of the semester. So it's as if your first assignment didn't even happen, right? So I did my first assignment. It's a table and a chair. I got a C on it. I wasn't really happy with it, right? You go back, do it again, turn it in by the end of the semester. I go back, I grade it again as if I never saw the first one. So it's not an improvement grade. Your grade can go up, your grade can go down. Depends on the quality. It's as if the first one didn't happen. You could do that for each assignment. Okay, same policy as 135. Okay, and I won't do the regrades until the end of the semester. So none of that happens until the end. Course participation. Okay, so after a lot of the exercises, again, I will be very specific in this class and say you should comment or you don't have to comment. Okay. For today's exercise, we're going to do one comment on it because I want to make sure that, some of you know how to comment, but some of you don't. So we're going to make sure that happens. But in general, when it's an exercise like today, we're making a cube, there's no reason for you to comment on a cube. I mean, I don't know how there could be 30 constructive things to say about a cube. Okay? So you don't have to worry about it. However, when we get toward the final, and we start to do final renderings, and we start to see how certain lighting conditions are affecting and whatever, that's a good time to get feedback. So I'll remind you, we'll go through feedback and how you do these commenting when we get there. Okay? It's worth about 5% of your overall grade. It's half the participation grade. Okay? So then we get into materials. Okay? You're going to need a flash drive or a hard drive. If you've never worked in one of these computer labs before, it's important for you to know that if these computers shut down, reboot, the power goes out, etc., anything that's stored on the computer itself will be deleted. Okay, they're frozen, so you can't do anything to them, and you can't store anything on them. So you're going to have your own flash drive. I would say at least 32 gigs. You're going to have a hefty material library as part of this class. The files that you'll generate can be very big. So 32, 64, maybe an external hard drive, depending on what feels right to you. That'd be a good place to start. Okay? You can use OneDrive. I've had some success with people using the whole OneDrive setup with Windows 10. The only challenge with that is if you're constantly re-downloading your materials library every time, you've got a lag when you first log in to wait for all your materials to come down. So if you have 2, 3, 4, 10 gigs of materials and stuff on your flash drive, you've got to wait for that to download every time. So it's fine, just be aware. Okay? So make sure you start bringing that to class sooner rather than later, i.e. bring it on Wednesday. Okay? Most of you probably already have this anyway. All right. Make sure that you keep your drive safe. Okay? So you leave your drive in your pocket and you throw your jeans in the wash. Not good. Okay? But you come to me and you say that and I say, too bad for you. Okay? So don't do it. Okay? Don't let it fall out of your pocket and drive over it with a car. Right? Don't let your daughter put it down the garbage disposal. Hey, Dad, look. Right? Don't do any of that stuff. Right? Safeguard your work. It's your job. It's your responsibility. I tell you this on the first day so that if you come to me afterwards and say I lost it, I can say, sorry. Okay? Does that make sense? Doom and gloom. Expect the worst. Okay? If, however, you leave it behind and some nice person says, hey, guess what? I left my flash, or this person left their flash drive behind, I generally put them all right here under the instructor machine. So if somebody gives it to me, that's where it goes, and it sits there until somebody picks it up. Okay? It's like good karma. You see a flash drive, you leave it here. Maybe somebody will do it for you someday. Okay? So try to be nice to each other and do that. You can use OneDrive, you can use Dropbox and back stuff up, etc. You get the idea. Okay? For at least one of the assignments, you are going to need some physical modeling supplies, i.e. cardboard, glue, maybe an X-Acto knife, something like that. Chances are you probably already have the glue and the X-Acto knife. It may just require a few sheets of cardboard. I think they're like $3 each at the store. It's really not a bad thing. Okay? So when we get there, I'll tell you the materials list, but I like up front to at least tell you that this is something that you will be doing. I told you. It's just like not behaving correctly. All right. So there may be a few physical materials as well. Okay, so attendance. If you took 135 last semester, right, you experienced this. If you took 135 before last semester, you didn't experience this. Okay? Because of the switch over to Windows 10, in this class there's going to be assigned seats. And the reason that we're going to assign the seats is so that when you first log into your machine, you don't have to go through all that welcome stuff anymore. So next class, at the beginning of next class, I hope, we're going to unlock all the machines before you guys step in. We'll get you to log in. We'll set up your toolbars correctly in Rhino. We'll fix the stuff that isn't fixed yet. Okay? We'll put all that in. We'll freeze the machines again. And then you will have a permanent seat for this particular class. Okay? Because you have a permanent seat for this class, it makes it really easy for me to take roll to make sure that you're actually here, okay, which is also a good thing. So you need to be in class before I start talking, which means sitting, right, computer on, ready to roll by 11:10 for this class. Okay, that's on time. And you also need to stay the whole time. Okay, so I told you before, since this is lunch, you can leave for a little bit, have your food, come back. Okay? But I expect you here at the beginning and I expect you here at the end. Okay? That means 150-ish. Okay? So the good news is, how many people are in 220 right now? Okay, how many people are in 221? Okay, how many people are in 121? Okay, so there's enough of that I think I covered the bases. Guess what? You have something else to work on. Right? Not today, but next class you will. Okay, so work on that if you have extra time. Okay, so this is the other half of your participation grade. Okay, and so this will show up on your grade sheets and whatever. Those of you that took 135 last semester, you saw this. So additional guidelines. If you're going to miss more than 2 weeks of class, probably not a good idea to take the class in the first place, right? In this class, if you miss 4 class days, you will be way behind, especially if we're dealing with anything related to V-Ray, okay? Because you just have to be here. You have to experience it. It's the way it works. I do also ask that you please tell me before the start of class if you're not going to be here, okay? You guys were pretty good in previous semesters about telling me this, but it helps me a lot to know, oh, I don't have to wait for you to show up, okay? If you've already texted me, hey, I'm really sick, right? I can't make it, then I'm not waiting around for you. Okay? It's just common courtesy. I use an example that I think helps illustrate this point. Okay? How many people have a job right now? Okay? So most of you have a job. Okay? What would happen if you just didn't show up? You wouldn't have a job anymore, right? Okay? So, right? This is a college class. Translate the two, okay? If you're not going to be here, you got to tell somebody you're not going to be here. Does that make sense? Okay, so just let me know ahead of time. It's really easy. I give you my phone number. You can text me. I will not be in class. It's not hard, okay? So do it, okay? Assignment due dates are going to be announced in class. I'll give you lots of warning for this because the assignments tend to last a long period of time, okay? It needs to be turned into me. Because we do one that's a physical model, I say turned into me. It could be posted, it could be turned into me, before I start talking on the day that it's due. So remember, I start talking at 11:10. It should have been posted or handed to me prior to that on the day that it's due. Does that make sense? Okay. So it should be pretty easy. Exercises are due at the end of class. That's flexible, right? Just get it done, get it posted, don't get behind. Okay? So I don't like to do the whole doom and gloom speech, but I have to do the doom and gloom speech, okay? Because this is like important. So this is very much a college class, okay? Because it's a college class, you don't have to ask me like, hey, I need to use the bathroom. No, just like go use the bathroom, right? Furthermore, right, you're in charge of how you do in the class. If you don't show up or you don't turn things in, you'll probably fail, okay? Not my problem if you fail. I would actually prefer it that way because you need to learn to withdraw yourself from the class. Does that make sense? Okay? So you're in charge of you. Don't rely on me. I think all too often at this level, too many people hold hands, right? The instructor, make sure. No, I don't hold your hand. You do bad, you get a bad grade. It's real easy, right? And guess what? You fail, you learn the lesson. Okay? So anyway, doom and gloom. I don't want you to do badly, right? The truth is, you ought to be able to get an A in this class. Okay, I love this class. Everybody who ends up finishing the class generally does a really good job. Right? There's a high percentage of good grades. They're out there. Okay, so do your work. We'll be in good shape. So obviously, there's 30-something of you, and there's one of me. Okay, if you get stuck, it doesn't help to sit and do this. Right? This doesn't help. Right? Instead of sitting and doing this and waiting for 30 minutes for me to get to you because I'm going as fast as I can to get to you, right? Lean over to your neighbor and say, hey, do you know what that V-ray setting is? Do you remember what he said? Right? Because your neighbor might know and might get you unstuck so that you're not sitting there wasting your time. Okay? So I do my best, and you guys know I do my best to come through and sit with you and solve problems and whatever. But like I said, there's only one of me and there's 30 of you. So I'll do the best I can. Do the same thing. Okay? Furthermore, the lectures are online. The step-by-step walkthroughs, the tutorials, they're all there so that you can get unstuck and not have to wait for me to get there. Okay? Sometimes you just need me. I get it. It's okay. It makes me feel loved. Right? But for the most part, you can get a lot of stuff done by yourself. Right? And so try to find those resources so that you're not sitting there wasting your time being stuck. Everything that's done in this class is done under a Creative Commons license. It just means that we can all share and all that kind of good stuff. If you have an issue with that, we can talk about it later. Right? I had one student like 7 years ago have an issue, and that's why it's in there. Okay? But enough. So, late work policy. Okay? Your work is graded down by 10% for every day it's late. So let's say we had an assignment, which we don't. Let's say we had an assignment that was due on Wednesday. Okay? For it to be on time, you would have to turn it in before I started talking at 11:10 on Wednesday. Okay? If you didn't turn it in, it would be marked late as long as you turned it in prior to the start of class, the next start. So in this case, it would be next Monday by 11:10. Does that make sense? So if that was the case, you had an A, it's now a B. You didn't turn it in that Monday, you turn it in on Wednesday, guess what? It's a C. You get the idea. Okay? So if it's 4 days of class late or more, you get a capped max credit of 50%. But that 50% is still a whole lot better than a 0. Okay, so I got a secret for you. Okay? So don't tell anybody. Okay? Do you think it would be better to turn in something that wasn't finished or to wait to try to finish it and turn it in late? Turn it in if it's not finished, okay? If you turn it in if it's not finished, you could do a regrade. You don't get the late penalty, right? I didn't tell you that, okay? So the point is, turn your work in on time, okay? The reason that it's set up that way is, guess what? You have a design review commission hearing. You have to have your work in by a certain time to get on the agenda. If you don't turn it in, you miss the meeting, your client's pissed, they fire you, you get the idea. Okay, so we don't do that. We turn stuff in on time. Always on time. But if it's late, you get penalized. Are those all the slides? Okay. So we made it to the student work section. So this is fun because I get to show student work. You guys, of course, are going to learn a lot, and you're going to learn to model a lot. And it takes a lot of practice to get to the level that you want to be at. But at the same time, we get to play around and we get to create really fun stuff in the end. Okay? So we build up a lot in this class. We start with very basic skills. So today we're building a cube, right? On Wednesday we go backwards even more, and we start with just basic 2D drawing, right? And we slowly start to build this stuff up into building 3D shapes, such that ultimately we can build pretty much anything. We'll talk about how to make cushions and how to make organic shapes and all those kinds of things. How do you make cloth look natural? And so we'll work through those various kinds of strategies, right? And ultimately we'll get into landscapes and water and those kinds of things. We'll also move into night renderings, sunset renderings, right? So you can get all the looks that you're after. Okay? And so I just like to flip through and kind of show you the work that people have done in the past, and it's a lot better on the projector than it is when it's printed out at the end. Okay? But of course you can look later on. We'll start by modeling furniture. So we'll do a table and a chair. We'll then move into doing 3D actual physical models so that you learn how to do that. We'll deal with compact shapes. We'll do a skyscraper. We'll ultimately do night renderings. We'll do light fixtures. And then, obviously, there'll be a final project where you kind of assemble everything together to create the final. Obviously, some of these have Photoshop. Right, no surprise. We'll talk about glass and how do you render glass. That was a particularly well done one. Through the airplane window. It's a lot better when you see it. I don't know. Okay, so those are a bunch of examples. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a brief break. We'll say 10 minutes. We'll come back at noon. It's 13 minutes, okay? And then we're going to sit down, and you're actually going to do your first modeling in Rhino. And so it will be slow. And one of the things that I think is very entertaining is we'll spend the next 2 hours doing this cube, okay? In the end, at the end of the semester, I've thought about doing this as like a final test or whatever. You could probably build this cube in less than 30 seconds, okay? But it's going to take you an hour, 2 hours today to do it, 90 minutes, okay? So it's okay. That's the way it works. We got to start at the beginning, right? So take your little break now, and then we will get you working in Rhino, okay? So make sure when you come back that you actually log into the computers and you get that opening stuff set up. All right, any questions before? No. Down the hallway. Okay, so we're going to get started on exercise 201, which is very much the beginning of Rhino. I make some references to the website. Unfortunately, the website is beyond resurrecting right now. I've tried during the break to see if I could get it to reboot, and I have no idea what's wrong with it. So we're going to wing a bit of this, okay? Chances are you won't actually make a post today, but you'll create this object, and we'll find a way to email the object to yourself or something like that, okay? So I apologize for those issues. Furthermore, the step-by-step isn't going to be there because the website's down. So we're going to just kind of go for it. Okay, so I will go slow. I will also repeat this probably 3 or 4 times. Okay, so there's no reason to panic if you get lost. Just wait for the next round, and we'll pick up where we left off. Okay, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up Rhino 5. Everybody logged into their computers? Am I waiting for anybody, or are we good? Okay, I think we're logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Rhino 5. It's on the desktop. If it's not on the desktop, it may be under the Start menu.
under all apps. I think it's under McNeil, or maybe it's under Rhino. I don't know. Rhinoceros 5. There you go. Okay. And when Rhino 5 opens, you may or may not get some splash screens that tell you, do you need to install RhinoCam, or blah, blah, blah is not working, or whatever. Click OK or Next to any of that stuff. Okay. We will, when we do the assigned seats next class, we're going to try to get rid of all that so you won't run into it. We're going to try to configure the workspace so that everybody looks the same. Okay. My computer here has been fixed, and obviously this is my ongoing account, so I've logged in before, so it looks like mine is supposed to look. But yours might not look exactly like this. If you end up with a couple panels on the left side, okay, there should be a little X. You can go ahead and just close those off. It'll say like RhinoCam or Grasshopper or whatever. You can get rid of those because we don't need those. Okay. So the goal is we're trying to look something similar to this page. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through kind of what's going on in the world of Rhino so that you can see what the workspace looks like, etc. Okay. So at the very top, we have our traditional menu structure with File, Edit, Curve, etc. These menus allow you access to pretty much any command that you could want. All right. It is also probably the slowest way of accessing any command, but they are here and you can access them. One of the things that you'll find when I'm instructing in Rhino is that I'll flip around with how I access things. So sometimes I'll demonstrate by going to the menus. Sometimes I'll demonstrate by typing into the command line. Sometimes I'll pick the button. And I'll try to go through all of those so that you see multiple ways of doing the same thing. Okay? And that's normal, and it's part of kind of my process and your process in learning Rhino to go on. So below our typical file structure is the command line. And you should see a line of text and then a bold text with a colon that says command. Okay? This is kind of similar to AutoCAD, though AutoCAD's been trying to hide it or nests it next to your cursor. But this command line is really the fastest way of interacting with Rhino. You can type directly into the command line. So if, for example, you wanted to draw a polyline, you could type pline and it would start the polyline command. When you're first learning Rhino, unless you already know AutoCAD and you know key commands from AutoCAD, it's a little daunting to have to remember, oh, polyline is pline, right? That is something that will happen naturally over time. So don't worry if you don't know what the key commands are, right? You will pick those up as we go along. Okay? But this command line is something that you want to kind of always keep one eye on. Because if we're in the middle of a command, let's say we're drawing a rectangle, for example, when we go to draw the rectangle, the command line will prompt you with what's next. So you might pick the first point, and the command line will say, pick the second point of the rectangle. So it'll always be prompting you with what you should be doing next. If you ever feel stuck, read what the command line says, because it'll probably get you out of whatever the problem is. Okay? Sometimes the command line doesn't make any sense because you don't know what the command is and it seems confusing. We'll cover that when we get to those specific moments. Okay? So below that, we have a set of little tabs. Generally speaking, we always just work on the standard tab. And so beyond the standard tab, in rare instances, we might go to the other tabs. Okay? But the standard tab gives us our basic stuff. Okay? For the most part, we don't even need any of that for today anyway. Okay? I have two toolbars below this. My guess is that none of you have these toolbars. Okay? These are both V-Ray toolbars. They were supposed to be on your computer by default, and 99% of them don't have them. So that's something that we will correct when we unlock your machine. So we'll make sure that that's installed so that it's installed permanently and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Okay? But that will come. So for right now, you can ignore those two, but ultimately it'll be there. On the left side here, we have a bunch of the most commonly used tools. And these are, for the most part, the places where you'll pick buttons. You'll say, oh, I want to draw a polyline. Let me click on the polyline button. Okay? And you'll get used to what the symbols represent as we go forward. You will also see that there's lots of little gray arrows next to these tools. Okay? Those gray arrows represent a bunch more tools that are hidden underneath the one tool. So kind of like Illustrator or InDesign, where you can get into sub-tools, we can do the same thing here. Okay? So if you want access to one of those subtools, you click the little triangle, and it'll bring up the rest of the tools. Okay? For the most part, you don't need to worry about it because the defaults will be there just fine. Okay? And I happen to pick surface, so you see that it's prompting me for first corner of surface. Okay? I don't want to do that. I'm going to hit escape on the keyboard to get out. Okay? In Rhino, when in doubt, hit escape. It'll get you out of wherever you are. If you panic, just hit escape a few times, and you'll be safe. Okay? So those are our standard tools on the left side here. Okay? On the right side, we have a window. Probably by default, it'll say Properties. Some of you, it might say Help. Okay? It depends on which one's on top. Properties is there. Layers is there. Those are both things that we'll use frequently. Today, we won't worry so much about layers. And again, we won't worry too much about properties, but it is there should you need any of the specific properties. Okay? Now, if we move to the very bottom, okay, hopefully you see this by default. If you don't see it, and I'm looking over some of your shoulders, okay, should be a bunch of of course, it's right below me too, right? There should be a bunch of check marks that say end, near, point, etc. If they're not there, okay, we're going to go up to the view. No, sorry. We're going to go to the Tools menu. We're going to go to Object Snap. And we're going to check the box at the very bottom that says Persistent OSNAP Dialog. Okay, again, this is something we will fix when we unlock the computers. Okay? And when that's checked, you should see end, near, point, etc. Okay? Let's go ahead and check end and mid for right now. Okay, so that those are both checked. Snapping is something that should be familiar if you've worked in AutoCAD at all. Certainly something that will be very common in the world of Rhino, and that is that when we're working in a 3D program, or a 2D program for that matter, like Rhino or AutoCAD, we have a certain precision of accuracy. Right? Things can be very, very accurate to real scale. And if, for example, I started to draw a line, all right, let me draw that line for a second, and I wanted another line to line up right at the end of that point, right? If I didn't have end snap on, right, I could say, oh, well, that's right at that point. No problem, I can draw it. Okay? But if I were to zoom in, they look like they're connected, right? Okay, but if I were to zoom in, you can see that they really aren't on top of each other because of the level of detail. So these object snaps at the bottom, right, act as a way of connecting one line to another. So no matter how much I zoom in, those are always going to meet at a point. So it's important to have those object snaps on most of the time. There's a few rare instances where we'll turn them off. But for the most part, we want them on. Okay? So I'm just pressing delete. You know, that was just an illustration. You're not supposed to draw that just yet. Okay? So I have those on. At the very bottom of the page, we see a few things as we go across. First thing, it should say inches. And I know this is behind my head, so it's right there. If yours doesn't say inches, we have to change the units. Okay? So how many people don't say inches? Right? Okay. So let's go ahead and just type in units. Okay? As I said before, there's always multiple ways of getting places. So instead of typing units, we could go to Tools and then Options and then pick Units. Right? So multiple ways of accessing. Obviously, typing units is a lot faster than going to the menu structure, but it's still there. And you want to make sure that your modeled units are in inches. Okay? We're always going to be working in inches when in doubt. Okay? We don't want to work in feet because it's going to screw up our V-Ray materials. So you can still type in feet, right? When you're typing in a measurement or something, you can still reference feet, but we want our default units to be in inches. Right? Otherwise, we might do a rendering of, say, a shingle wall, and instead of having the shingles taper by 1/4 inch, they might taper by 4 inches. Right? And it's going to look funny. So we're going to make sure that we're always in inches. Okay? When I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and say OK. Okay? And now you should see down here, it should say inches. That's what we're after. What did that say for you guys, the X?
Oh, it said like the wall.
Oh, OK. Just checking. You guys are my test. I can look and see what's working and what's not. So thank you. OK. So as we've come across a little bit further, there's something that says default with a black square next to it. That is what layer you're currently working on. So we're working on the default layer. That's fine. We'll talk about layers down the road. Okay? Then we come across with a bunch of little toggle switches. Okay? We have grid snap, we have ortho, we have planar, OSNAP, smart track, etc. All of those little toggles will start to make sense as we go forward. The defaults are just fine for right now. We don't need anything more than that. OK, so now we've gone all the way around the perimeter of Rhino, but we haven't talked about Rhino, the workspace itself. Okay? So this looks a little bit different than AutoCAD in that there are 4 views at once. So we have a top view, and you can see by this little layer that it says top. We have a front view. We have a right view. So those of you that have taken 130 are familiar with the top, the front, and the right side view. Right? That's standard orthographic projection. We also get a bonus view here of perspective. This allows us to see the 3-dimensional object. Okay? I can tell you, in all honesty, you will use all of these views as you start to learn Rhino. In the very beginning, we're going to isolate and just work in the 3-dimensional perspective view because the other views don't provide too much. And so we'll be very contrived. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look where it says perspective here. I'm going to click on it, see how it becomes kind of a light blue. Then I'm going to double click on it. And you see that 4 views turn into just one big view that says perspective. Okay? If I double click on it again, we go back to the 4 views. And you can see that I can quickly go between all the views by just double clicking on the name. Okay? So we're going to work in this large perspective view to start our drawing. And the shape that we're ultimately going to make is the one that's on the bottom of your handout. Right? It's kind of this cube thing, okay, with a swooping side. So we're going to start by drawing a rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to come over here on the left side, and you can see in my tools here that one of the tools that I have is a rectangle tool. Okay, I'm going to click on that rectangle tool, and I'm going to look at my command line. The first thing that it says is first corner of rectangle. Okay, sounds pretty good. So I need to click where that first corner would be. So I can click anywhere, right, to start my rectangle. Then it says other corner or length. Okay, so it's asking me for what's the other corner. And we will talk at length next class about the coordinate system and how you determine what this other coordinate is. But I'm going to go ahead and help you out. What you're going to do is you're going to type in this. The @ sign like an email address, 2 followed by an apostrophe for feet, the comma sign, another 2 with an apostrophe. Okay? Here, I can write it over here in case you guys can't see that. So it's going to be at 2 feet, comma, 2 feet. And we'll explain what that means next class. Okay? And I'll talk to you about coordinate systems, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the @ sign, 2 apostrophe, comma, 2 apostrophe. Inches, by the way, are quotation marks. Okay? So I just said at 2 feet, comma, 2 feet, enter, and I get a square. Okay? Now, the view that we're looking in, right, makes this look a little bit more like a rectangle. Right? It's because we're in perspective view. If I double click on perspective, double click on top, we can look straight down at the top and you see that it's a square, right, which is what we were after. So there it is. I could do it again just for practice. I'll go to my rectangle tool. I'll come over here, and I'll type at, and again, 2 apostrophe, comma, 2 apostrophe. Now, I could switch that into inches just for illustration purposes, and I could say 24 quotation, comma, 24 quotation, enter, and I get the same thing. Right? I just switched from inches to feet. Doesn't matter. Right? And that's part of what's important to understand is that we can use either one. Let's get rid of that. So right now, this shape, which if I click on it, you see it highlights in yellow. Okay? This shape is just a line that goes around. There's no surface to it. It's just an infinitely thin little line. I want it to have a surface on it. I want it to look like it's a solid object. So I'm going to use a command called patch. So I'll go up to the surface menu, and I'll come down to patch. Right? I could also type in patch. That would work too. So under my little dialog box that comes up here under Patch Surface Options, yours probably says 10 and 10. That would be my guess. Okay? If it does, select it and say 2 and 2. Read your command line. What does your command line say? Right? So select curves, click on the little rectangle, and then hit enter after you select. Click on that, hit enter. Now it pops up. So it's asking what curve do you want to patch? So you didn't have anything selected, so it was looking for it. Okay? And I apologize, obviously I had mine already selected. Okay, so I've set it to be 2 by 2. I'll go ahead and say OK. And you see that now, right, I have like a little cross thing. Okay? It still doesn't look like much. It's still rather transparent. Okay? I want to change the view type so that I can look at it as if it were a solid object rather than a wireframe. So I'm going to come up here to Perspective. I'm going to click on the little triangle that's next to Perspective. And I'm going to switch from wireframe to shaded. Okay? And you see that when I do that, my surface turns gray. Right? Now I can see it as a solid object, which was the goal. Okay? So I'm going to do it again. Like I told you, I'm going to keep repeating. Right? That's the nature of it. At the end of the semester, this will take 30 seconds. Today, it'll take 2 hours. It's OK. It's the way it works. Okay? So let me do it again. I'm going to go to my rectangle. I'll start over here. I'm going to say at 2 feet, comma 2 feet, and hit enter. There's my rectangle again. Okay? I'm going to go to Surface and then Patch. And this time I did it the way you guys did. I had nothing selected. I look at my command line, and it says select curves, points, point clouds, meshes to fit surface through. Obviously, I only have one curve. There it is. Right? Curve, by the way, in the world of Rhino means line. Okay? It can be curving. It can be straight. A curve just is a line. It's Rhino's way of referring to a line. So I've selected it. I'll press enter when done. It's telling me to do that. And I'll make sure that my patch options are 2 and 2. And I'll go ahead and say OK. And now that's a surface as well. So again, when I click on it, right, it highlights in yellow. That's how I know what's selected. The other thing that you'll find, give me 1 second to go one step further, and then I'll answer. Okay? The other thing that you'll find is that when you click on something that has 2 objects on top of each other, this is where I think Rhino far exceeds the world of AutoCAD. If I click on something that has 2 objects on top of each other, it will give me a little selection menu so that I can decide which object I meant. Do I want the curve or do I want the surface? Because they both exist. So Rhino's really good at saying, wait a minute, I think you're clicking on one of these objects. Which one did you want? Okay? What was your question? Okay, do you see the cross? Okay, if you don't see it as a solid gray object, go up to this triangle next to Perspective and switch to Shaded from Wireframe. Okay? So now I have the bottom of this shape that I want to make. Okay? Now I need to start working with this shape in 3 dimensions. Okay? And those of you that are in the SketchUp world are like, where's my push-pull tool? I'm on it. Right? No push-pull tool. No. Actually, there is something similar to push-pull, but we're not going there. Okay? So we're starting with the basics. We've got to learn the basics. We need practice with the basics anyway. So I'm going to once again go back to my rectangle tool. Okay? And I'll click on the rectangle tool. Now, if I look at the command line, as we did before, you see it says first corner of rectangle. OK, sounds reasonable. OK, but next to it, there's some other options. I have a 3-point. I have vertical. I have center. I have rounded. OK? Well, we already drew something that is flat on the ground. We want this one to go vertical. So I'm going to click on vertical. Or I can type V, which is the capital letter for vertical. Right? So all I have to do is type the capital letter. It's most of the time the first letter. You can see that it's underlined. and capital, right? Sometimes it's in the middle of the word, so you have to pay a little bit of attention. So we'll go ahead and click on vertical or type V, and it says start of edge. So let's go from here, end of edge, to right here, and then I can start to draw this up in the vertical direction. So this time it's asking me for a height, so I'll specify 2 feet as my height, and I'll press enter. Okay. So you don't have to do the at anymore. Okay, so it's just 2 feet. There's no, it's not a coordinate. There's no comma. Okay. So when I press enter, you see that it's saying, wait, which way did you want it to go? So it's 2 feet in a direction, but do I want it to go up or do I want it to go down? So it's just asking you to click on the side that you want it to go. So I want it to go up, so I'll click on the up side, and I create that shape. Okay, I'm going to do it again. So we'll go back to my rectangle tool. Instead of first corner of rectangle, I'm going to pick vertical. When I pick vertical, it's going to say start of edge. So we'll do it right there. End of edge would be right there. Now I'm going up vertically. I'm going to press 2 feet, and I'll hit enter. And I want it to be going in the up direction, not the down direction. So we'll go up, and I'll click. Okay? So once again, I have a rectangle, and I need to fill it in. So I'll go back and I'll use the patch. By the way, if you want to orbit, okay, you can just right-click and hold an orbit in Rhino. Okay? So I do that sometimes, and I forget to tell you that because it becomes such habit. It's actually one of the hardest things to transition back to SketchUp once you get used to the right-click to orbit. It drives you nuts in SketchUp because you're like, ah! Anyway, so you'll get there. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and select this curve. I'm going to go up to surface and then patch again. If I can find it, there it is. And I want it to be 2 and 2 once again. And I'll say OK. By the way, if this were 10 and 10, it will still turn out as a surface, but it will look like a bunch more grid. Okay? And this has to do with how materials are applied to it later on. So it's better to get in the habit of just the 2 by 2. You don't need the complexity for something like this. It's such a simple shape. I actually, in all honesty, don't know why they set it as a default of 10 by 10. I would have set the default as 2 by 2. But anyway, so I'm going to repeat that again. Once again, I'll go up to curve, or excuse me, surface, and then patch. Select curves. There's my curve. I'll hit enter. 2 and 2 works fine. I'll say OK. And that then gives me that shape. Okay, not too bad. So we now have the bottom and we have the back side. Okay, I still need to do one more piece here. And so I can go ahead and go back to my rectangle and I can draw this again. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. Rectangle, V for vertical, start of edge, there to there, up to here. This time I'm just snapping. I already have the distance. I could take my rectangle, and I can patch that rectangle, and I can say OK. Okay? So what I've done so far is good for practice, because we created the curve first, and then we patched the curve to create the surface. Okay? I can, however, jump straight forward, and instead of using the rectangle, I can go to rectangular surface. So if you come down here, there's kind of a bluish surface with 4 dots on all the sides. You see that? If I click on the triangle next to it, you'll see that I can create a vertical plane. It's right here. Okay? This is essentially exactly what we just did, but we don't have to draw the curve first. So I'll click on vertical plane, and I'll go start of edge here, end of edge there, and it just creates the surface for me. So I don't have to have a curve. I can just draw the surface straight up. It doesn't matter which way we're doing it today. Right? You'll get used to lots of different ways. I'm just trying to show you a variety of strategies. Okay? So I've now made it to where I have 3 sides. And I'm using the right click to orbit so that I can orbit around and see it a little bit better over here. And I apologize, this mouse, for whatever reason, loves to right-click when I don't want it to. So I have to hit escape more often. OK, so now I need the top. OK, but when I create the top, I don't want it to be a square top anymore. I want it to be a triangular top. So I'm going to come over right here, and I have a couple options. Number one, I can do this surface from 3 or 4 corner points. I can click on it, and I can pick first corner of surface, there, second corner, there, third corner, there. There is no fourth corner, so I'll just hit enter, and it will build a surface for me. It's pretty simple. The other thing that I could do is I could use the polyline tool, which is right here, and I could draw 1, 2, 3, and 4 to create a line, and then I could go back to my surface, patch, and I could say OK, and that would essentially create the exact same thing. Okay? Either method is perfectly fine. So once again, I'll do those. I'm going to come here to the surface from 3 or 4 corner points, and I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. Hit enter, and I've created those. Or I can draw with my polyline tool 1, 2, 3, and 4. Select that triangle and go to surface, patch, and I'll say OK, and that then builds that surface. Either way, perfectly fine. Okay? Now, I need to do the same triangle on the front. So you see that I designed this to repeat steps, right? So we're doing the same thing over and over again for practice. So let me go ahead and do the surface from 3 or 4 corner points again. And I'm going to go from there to there and down to there. I'll hit enter to finish, and there's a surface. Or I could use my polyline tool, and I could draw from here to there, and back to there. Take this and surface patch, and say OK. Now you see that the lines on these two surfaces are slightly different. Doesn't make any difference, right? When we render, it'll be fine. OK, so I've managed to make most of this shape. Yeah?
Sorry, question.
Mm-hmm.
For that, the surface from 3 to 4
Mm-hmm.
points, is there a command for that or no?
No, it's right here.
So you just
And yeah, there is actually a command. It's srfpt, but that's a hard one to remember. I don't even do it. I pick the tool, right? But it just depends on what. Sometimes it's a mix, and you have to. And for those of you that have worked in AutoCAD, you understand that some things you just type, and some things you just pick, and it just depends. And you'll figure out what the right workflow is for you. There will be times when I'm doing things to where it's really hard because I want to type the command, and I have to slow myself down because I'm just in the habit of I always type the command. Or I'll say, oh, you can go to the surface menu, and it's really not there because I always type it, and I don't know. You know, it's like patch. I always type patch. I never actually go to it. So you'll learn what the right workflow is for you. Okay? Nothing to worry about just yet. OK, so on this front, right, I need to create a surface that kind of twists to put that into perspective. And I'm going to do that using a command that's called loft. And what loft does is it creates a surface between 2 lines. So before I can use this command, I have to create 2 lines. Okay? Now I can go to the polyline tool, and I can draw a line right here along the bottom. So there's one line. And I'll select it just so you can see it. It's right there. Okay? Then I'll go back to the polyline tool, and I'll draw a line across the top, like that. And I need to select it as well, so I'll hold down the Shift key while I select it. And that gives me the second line. Okay? So there's a line there, and there's a line there. Once I have those 2 lines selected, I can go up to Surface and then Loft. Loft is another one that I always type. Okay? So I'll click Loft, and it will build a very nice, smooth surface that connects those. Right? Try that one out, SketchUp. No, just kidding. Okay, so we will do the same thing over here on this surface. Okay, this time I'm going to, well, I'll illustrate it again this same way, and then I'll show you another way. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line from there to there. I'll hit Enter to finish. I'm going to draw a line from here to there, hit Enter to finish. By the way, if you're working and you right-click after you've finished a command, you can repeat the last command again. So if I were drawing a line, I'd just right-click and I can draw another line. Okay? So I have this line right there. Notice I'm picking just the single line, not the line that goes all the way around. Just the single line. There. I'll hold down Shift, pick the line at the top, there and there. I'll go up to Surface, and then Loft, and I'll say OK. And that creates that little curving shape. Okay, pretty easy. So one of the things that we tend to do, and in this particular example, it's not hard. But if this shape was more complicated, right? Let's say that this was an arc rather than a straight line, right? Creating the arc or tracing the arc with a line would be challenging. So one of the things that I'll emphasize when we're learning Rhino is that we can create what's called derivative geometry. We have something, and we can create a line from that. So this is kind of like the way intersect works in SketchUp. Right? You have two planes that intersect in SketchUp. You could say intersect the faces, and you get a curve. Rhino does the same thing. So in this case, I'm going to duplicate an edge. And it's under Curve, Curve from Objects, Duplicate Edge. Or you could type in dupe edge, which is what I tend to do. And I can pick this edge and this edge. And when I press Enter, it'll create a line from those two edges. So instead of drawing over the top of it, I could, using derivative geometry, create two lines. Okay? It seems a little like, why on earth would you do that? Right? It's too many steps. When things get complicated, when we have complex surfaces that are trying to work together, this will really matter. Okay? So I try to emphasize it early when it's easy so that you can have it later on. If you don't do it today, no big deal. I'm just showing it to you. Okay? So I have those two. We'll go ahead and loft. And I'm just typing loft this time instead of going to surface loft. I'll press Enter, and it makes the same shape. Okay? The defaults here are all fine. We're not going to go beyond those. Okay? So now that I have these two really cool spaces, or really cool objects, it's a matter of starting to work from here to create some kind of an output. Okay? And like I said, the website is conveniently down, so we're not going to post anything today. But I am going to show you how to create some outputs. And I'm just going to double check really quick that the website is still down. Yep, it's still down. All right. OK, so we're going to work, and I'll do this in two stages. The first piece, actually, you know what? Let me pause for a second, make sure. Did anybody not here yet? Did anybody not create the shape? OK. OK, so we've got one more step. So I'm going to pause recording for just a second, and then I'm going to come around. OK, so I'm going to keep going with actually creating an output. A lot of you have your second shapes done. Like I said before, I'm actually very impressed. You guys are picking this up quickly. That means it's going to be a good semester. I like it. OK, so we're going to keep going. This is the point at which some of you will have fun and play around with this, and some of you will be like, nope, I'm out. And that's OK. Okay? So we need to create an output of some kind. And remember, this is the first day, so things aren't going to go right and whatever. But I like to show you fun stuff anyway. So here we are. And we have these two pieces. The most simple way of creating an output is to go to this little triangle, go down to Capture, to File. And what this does is it creates for us a JPEG of whatever we see on the screen. Okay, so I'll put it on the desktop for right now, and we'll call this exercise 201, if I can type, which apparently I can't. 201. And I'll go ahead and click Save. And so that right there is my JPEG image of what I see on the screen. Okay? Not too fancy, but it gives me a record of what I have. There will be times where you're modeling stuff and the renderings don't work and whatever. If you show me this, this will be fine. Okay? So for what we're doing today, this would be fine. Okay? So now that I have this, because the website is awful today, take this file, email it to myself, and we'll post it next class when the website is working, we hope. Okay? So that's end of what we're doing. However, let's have some fun. Okay? Hopefully you think this is fun. Okay, so now I want to look at this so that we're not looking at as just surfaces. So I'm going to switch from my shaded mode into rendered mode. And when I switch into rendered mode, you see that the lines kind of go away. And it gives me a little bit better view of these two objects. Okay, so that's kind of nice. But let's take it a step further and see if we can play around with it as a full V-Ray render. So I'm going to go to V-Ray. And do you guys have this or not? No? OK. So go to Render, go to Current Renderer, and change from Rhino Render to V-Ray for Rhino. OK, so once again, it's under Render, Current Renderer, V-Ray for Rhino. OK, once that's set up, then you can, in fact, go to the V-Ray menu. It should show up now, right? Yeah, if it says failure to exit, just say yes or no or whatever. Just click it. Make it go away. Doesn't matter. OK, so I'm going to go from V-Ray. Actually, before I go into anything, I'm going to go ahead and select my objects. So let me select them. Then I'll go to V-Ray, and I'm going to go to Material Editor. OK, and so this is how we would apply a V-Ray material. Now, unfortunately for you, I had this all set up in the sample file that you were going to download that had a bunch of materials, including like gold and stuff, so you could make your cube of solid gold block and whatever. It was supposed to be fun. Sorry. Anyway, so we have a couple options. One, we can create a material of some kind. So I can, for example, right-click on C materials. I could create a material. This will be a standard material. And like I said, this isn't required for today, so if I lose you, no worries. Okay? And let's go ahead and under diffuse here, let's change the color to be maybe red. OK? And now I just need this material, which if I preview it shows up as red, to be on these objects. So I can right-click on the name of the material, which is currently default material. And I can say apply material to selection. And now those are now bright red. Right? So I've applied that material. OK? So I could take this a step further. No, I can't go to the website. Never mind. That's useless. I wonder, some of you may have, if you go to your downloads folder from last semester, it's possible that you might have some materials in there because somebody downloaded them ahead of time. If not, oh well. Probably not. No, empty? OK. Well, so anyway, we're stuck with our generic red piece. So this is about as far as I can take you today without the website, because you can't download any materials. So it is what it is. We'll get to V-Ray. Sorry that we don't get to make gold cubes, which was kind of the fun part, making gold bars. Anyway, so now that I have these in red, once again, I can go to Capture, right? And I could save these as red objects. So I'll capture the file, and they can be red. I could also go as far as actually rendering the objects. So I can click on this little blue sphere, and it will render out the objects for me, which is rather anticlimactic because there's no light in the scene, and it's a black background, so you don't really get anywhere. Again, if we had downloaded the sample file, I already had stuff like the lights and whatever set up for you, so it would have worked nicer. But anyway, so once you get to this stage and you have this, you're more than welcome to practice again if you want. But once you have a captured file, email it to yourself so you can post it next class because things are not working. Yeah. I would love to repeat how to do that. So bear with me. I'm going to do that again. But if you finish and you have your captured file, okay, you're more than welcome to leave. Okay? Starting next class, we'll try to do the whole duration and all that sort of thing. And obviously, I'll fingers crossed the website will be working. Okay? So let's go back and play around with the materials a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and select my objects first. It doesn't really matter if you select them first because you can go back and select them later, but I get in the habit of doing it. I'm going to go to the V-Ray menu, and I'm going to go to Material Editor. Okay? And I'll create a new material. So I'm in Scene Materials. I'll right-click. I'll say create material, and we'll do standard. Okay. Notice that they're by default named default material, whatever. I could rename this if I wanted to be like, I don't know, blue. Okay, so it shows up as blue. And then right here under the top little drawer here, I'm going to go ahead and change the color, the first option. And I can change that to be some shade of blue. And we'll say OK. If I were to preview this, we'd see that there it is as blue. Okay. If I wanted this to be shiny, just for fun, we'll add some shine to it. I can right-click on the material. I can go to, why is it not there? Come on. Create layer, reflection. I'm not going to change any settings, but if I go to preview, it's now shiny. Okay. So I can apply this to my selection, and now I have the shiny blue objects instead. Okay. So again, all of this is just for fun. You don't have to do it today. We'll get into it. But you can start to see how V-Ray, if I were to open up that material editor again, okay, just in the V-Ray material, right? This is a plain blue material. This is just in the reflection. Look at all the options I have relating to reflection. Then we come down here into the rest of the options that I have. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that's nested inside V-Ray. And this is just the material. It has nothing to do with the environment. We'll get to the environment too, which is a whole other set of objects or settings. So anyway, we'll get there. But if we get to the point where we've created these shapes, I'm quite happy for the first day. All right? Are there any other questions before we get too far? No? Yeah. OK, when they're selected, you will right-click. Oops, sorry, wrong thing. You will right-click on the name of the material and say Apply Material to Selection. Yeah.
All right, so I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Mine starts showing up gray. It's not actually color.
Are you in rendered mode or are you in shaded mode? Switch to rendered mode if you want to see it. Yeah. The V-Ray option. Go to your render menu, go to current renderer, and change from Rhino to V-Ray. OK, I'll come and look at yours in a second. OK. OK. That's number 11. OK, I'll write it down. There's nothing you can do. Let me write it down so that I can make sure that gets fixed.